Bank manager humiliates black customer, then learns he's the bank's owner. On a quiet Friday afternoon, Elijah Carter, a successful entrepreneur, walked into his own bank branch dressed in casual attire. What should have been a simple task turned into a humiliating encounter with the branch manager, who judged him by his appearance. Little did they know, Elijah wasn't just another customer. He was the owner of the entire bank. Stay tuned to discover how this powerful moment unfolded and the lesson it taught everyone. It was a late Friday afternoon in Pasadena, California. The sun dipped lazily behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the tidy streets. Elijah Carter, a 41-year-old entrepreneur known for his innovative approach to community banking, was wrapping up a busy week. Today wasn't about boardrooms or business suits. It was about grabbing a few papers from one of his branches. Simple and straightforward, or so he thought. Dressed in a pair of comfortable jeans and a plain hoodie, Elijah stepped into the branch office of Western Gateway Bank, one of 25 locations under his ownership. The branch hummed with life, customers chatting softly, the faint sound of keyboards clacking, and the whir of the printer at the front desk. Elijah gave a friendly nod to the security guard as he walked in, his eyes scanning the familiar layout. The manager on duty, a sharp-faced woman named Allison Parker, stood at her desk near the back. With her tailored blazer and air of authority, she seemed engrossed in a discussion with another employee. Elijah approached the counter, greeted the young teller, and requested to retrieve a few notarized documents he'd left for safekeeping earlier in the week. Before the teller could respond, Allison noticed the interaction. She strode briskly to the front, her heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. Her eyes landed on Elijah, narrowing slightly. "Can I help you with something?" she asked. Her tone clipped and curt, as if his presence were an inconvenience. Elijah smiled politely. "Yes. I'm just here to pick up some documents I left last Tuesday." Allison crossed her arms. "I don't recall seeing you here before," she said, her voice tinged with skepticism. "Do you even have an account with us?" Her words weren't just dismissive. They were designed to establish dominance. The customers in the line behind Elijah exchanged glances, sensing the tension. But Elijah kept his composure, offering a calm, measured response. "I do, in fact. I've been banking here for years, but Allison wasn't done yet." She waved a hand dismissively toward the teller. "I'll take it from here. Sir, if you're looking for basic services, you might want to visit one of the larger branches. This location primarily serves our higher-tier clientele." But something about her tone suggested that her assumptions went beyond his attire, and Elijah wasn't about to let it slide. Elijah's expression remained calm, but a flicker of disappointment crossed his eyes. He'd encountered this kind of treatment before, dismissiveness that stemmed from assumptions. Instead of addressing Allison's tone directly, he decided to proceed with quiet confidence. "I understand, but my documents should already be here. If you could just check under the name Elijah Carter, that would save us all some time." Allison raised an eyebrow, her posture stiffening further. "Elijah Carter," she repeated, her voice laced with disbelief. "We don't normally hold documents for customers unless they have premium accounts. Are you sure you're at the right branch?" The room grew quieter as customers began to notice the exchange. Even the tellers behind the counter seemed to pause in their work. Elijah didn't miss the way Allison's eyes swept over his hoodie and jeans, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm quite certain," Elijah replied evenly. "This is the branch I've used for years." Allison let out a short, humorless laugh and turned toward the teller. "Check for his name, but I highly doubt we have anything here. We're not a storage facility for misplaced paperwork." The young teller hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but began typing into the system. Meanwhile, Allison stepped closer to Elijah, lowering her voice in a way that carried more malice than discretion. "Look, sir," she said, her words dripping with condescension. "We have policies in place for a reason. If you're not in the right account bracket, there's no way we can accommodate special requests like this. Maybe next time consider upgrading your status before coming in." Elijah felt the heat of several gazes on him, but he refused to let Allison's words rattle him. He simply folded his arms and waited, giving her a chance to reveal her own ignorance. After what felt like an eternity, the teller finally spoke up, her voice timid. Actually, Mr. Carter's documents are here. They were marked for secure pickup. Allison's head snapped toward the teller. What? She barked. Yes, they're right here, the teller said, holding up a folder with Elijah's name clearly labeled. For a brief moment, Allison's composure faltered. She snatched the folder, her face flushed, and handed it over begrudgingly. There you go, she muttered. Elijah took the folder with a polite smile. Thank you. And just to clarify, is there a reason this process needed to be so complicated? Allison stiffened, regaining her defensive posture. We have to ensure security and verify credentials, especially when dealing with certain clientele. But her words only deepened the hole she was digging, and Elijah knew the time to set the record straight was fast approaching. Elijah held the folder firmly in his hands, maintaining a calm demeanor. But inside, he weighed his next steps carefully. He'd spent years building Western Gateway Bank, not just as a financial institution, but as a symbol of inclusivity and opportunity for all. This moment wasn't just about him. It was about addressing the deeper issue Allison's behavior represented. Taking a measured breath, he looked Allison directly in the eyes. You know, I appreciate your concern for security, but I can't help but wonder, was this really about verifying credentials or something else? The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Allison's lips tightened as she glanced around, realizing the growing attention of the other customers. Some shifted uncomfortably, while others watched with interest, sensing that something important was about to unfold. Allison straightened her blazer and forced a stiff smile. Sir, we follow the same protocol for all our customers. There's no need to take this personally. Elijah gave a small nod. I see. Well, since you're so committed to protocol, let me formally introduce myself. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek business card, handing it to her with deliberate precision. Allison hesitated, then took the card. Her eyes scanned it, and her confident expression shattered almost instantly. The bold lettering at the top read, Elijah Carter, founder and CEO, Western Gateway Bank. Her face drained of color. You're the CEO, she stammered, the words catching in her throat. Yes, Elijah said evenly. I own this bank, and all the others under its name. The room fell into a stunned silence. The customers, tellers, and even the security guard seemed frozen in place, their eyes darting between Elijah and Allison. Allison's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Mr. Carter, I didn't realize... Elijah held up a hand to stop her. Exactly. You didn't realize. And that's the problem. His voice was firm but calm, carrying the weight of someone who had experienced this type of treatment too many times before. I've worked hard to build a company that values every individual, regardless of how they look or dress, because respect shouldn't be conditional. Yet here I am, being dismissed and condescended to by someone who should know better. The customers in the room exchanged murmurs, some nodding in agreement. Allison, now visibly flustered, tried to regain control of the situation. Mr. Carter, I truly apologize if I came across as harsh. It wasn't my intention. But Elijah wasn't done. He knew this was a moment to teach, not just forgive and forget. Elijah took a step forward, his calm gaze fixed on Allison. Intent matters, but so do actions. And your actions today showed not just a lack of respect, but a dangerous assumption about who deserves to be treated with dignity. The words echoed through the room, drawing the attention of everyone present. The discomfort was palpable, but Elijah's voice remained steady and composed. You looked at me and decided I wasn't worth your time, that I didn't belong here, he continued. And the way you spoke to me, that wasn't about policies or protocol, that was about power. Your belief that you could exercise it over someone you assumed had none. Allison opened her mouth to respond, but stopped herself. The weight of Elijah's words left no room for excuses. She glanced around nervously, aware that the entire room was watching her unravel. Elijah's tone softened slightly, though his message remained pointed. Do you know how many people experience this kind of treatment every day? People who don't have a title or a business card to prove their worth? How many walk out of here feeling less than they are because of interactions like this? The question hung in the air, heavier than the silence that followed. Some of the customers nodded subtly, their faces reflecting their own experiences of being judged unfairly. Even the young teller at the counter looked down, her cheeks flushing with second-hand embarrassment. Elijah let out a small sigh, then gestured toward the room. "This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who walks through those doors expecting fair treatment. They shouldn't have to prove their value to receive basic respect." Allison's shoulders slumped. She looked down at the card in her hand, her carefully constructed image of authority now completely shattered. I understand, Mr. Carter," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I truly didn't mean to offend you or anyone else." Elijah tilted his head slightly, considering her response. "I'll take your apology at face value, but understand this. Apologies only mean something when they're backed by change." And with that, he turned his attention to the rest of the room, ready to drive home a lesson that no one present would soon forget. Elijah shifted his focus from Allison to the room, his voice carrying a quiet strength that commanded attention. "Moments like this are bigger than one person," he said, looking at the faces around him. "They're about how we, as people, choose to treat one another. Whether we respect someone based on who they are or what we assume about them." He placed the folder of documents on the counter beside him and folded his hands. "I started Western Gateway Bank with a simple philosophy: fairness, transparency, and respect for everyone. No one should walk into a place of business and feel like they're less than anyone else. Not here, not anywhere." Several customers nodded, their expressions softening with empathy. A middle-aged man in a weathered jacket spoke up. "He's right. Too many of us get looked at sideways just for the way we're dressed or where we come from. It's time we started doing better." Elijah smiled at the man, appreciating the solidarity. "It's not just about policies," he continued. "It's about mindset. It's about stopping ourselves from making snap judgments that can hurt or demean someone else. And if you're in a position of power, like a branch manager, it's about using that power to lift people up, not push them down." Allison stood rooted in place, visibly humbled. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Carter," she said softly. "I see that now. I'll do better." Elijah's gaze lingered on her for a moment before he nodded. "I hope you will. Because it's not just me you owe better treatment. It's every person who walks through those doors." He glanced at the young teller, who had been kind enough to locate his documents. "And it starts with empowering your team to act with the same fairness and respect that should define this branch." The teller offered a timid but grateful smile, clearly relieved that the focus was no longer on her. But Elijah knew this wasn't just about words. It was about leaving a lasting impression that would ripple beyond the room. Elijah turned back to Allison, his tone softening but remaining firm. "I'm not here to fire you or make an example of you, Allison, but I will be watching to see how this branch operates moving forward. Respect isn't just a policy, it's a practice. One that needs to be reflected in how you treat every person who walks through that door." Allison nodded slowly, her face a mixture of regret and determination. "I understand, Mr. Carter. Thank you for giving me the chance to improve. I won't let you down." Satisfied but not overly forgiving, Elijah returned his attention to the room. "To everyone here," he said, raising his voice slightly, "thank you for your patience. I hope what happened today serves as a reminder to all of us, not just in this bank, but in life. Respect doesn't come from titles, clothing, or assumptions. It comes from how we choose to see and treat one another." There was a murmur of agreement among the customers. Some smiled, while others gave him small nods of encouragement. One elderly woman near the back of the line raised her hand slightly and said, "It's good to see someone stand up for what's right." Elijah offered her a warm smile, then grabbed his folder from the counter. "Thank you, ma'am. And remember, we all have the power to stand up for what's right, even in the smallest of moments." With that, Elijah turned and began to leave, his casual demeanor as steady as it had been when he arrived. As he walked out the door, he glanced back briefly, catching Allison's eye one last time. She was already speaking quietly to her team, her posture less rigid and more reflective. But Elijah knew this was just the beginning. Change starts with moments like this, but it grows with actions that follow. As Elijah stepped out into the fading sunlight, He felt a quiet satisfaction, not from asserting his authority, but from knowing he'd planted a seed for change. The encounter wasn't about revenge or power. It was about creating a moment of reflection that could ripple through the branch and beyond. Moments like these, he thought, serve as reminders of the small but impactful ways we can challenge assumptions and hold others accountable. Elijah hoped that Allison, her team, and even the customers who had witnessed the exchange would carry the lesson forward in their own lives. Respect isn't about what someone wears, where they're from, or what their title says. It's about how we treat people, not because of who they are, but because of who we are. This story is a powerful reminder that respect should never depend on appearances or assumptions. Elijah's calm and composed response to prejudice demonstrates the importance of standing up for fairness and treating everyone with dignity. It's a lesson for us all to challenge biases and create environments where everyone feels valued. If this inspiring story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more impactful tales. See you in the next video.